Hey, we got some mailbag questions we're going to answer for you here coming up, including who's going to be the biggest portal addition aside from John Mateer, coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Our first question in today's mailbag segment comes from Charles Starver 2744 over on YouTube. He says, besides John Mateer, what transfer is going to be the biggest blessing for Oklahoma, Jay?
To me, it's Kendall Daniels. State guy from Beggs, Oklahoma, played at Oklahoma State, was a freshman All-American, with freshman player of the year in the Big 12. And he did all of that underneath the tutelage of one defensive coordinator that's currently at Ohio State. And to me, I think that he's going to be one of those plug-and-play guys that can actually step up and help immediately. We talk about Danny Stutzman being gone. And when you lose a player like that, and then Deshaun McCullough, which was one of the players it hurt me that we lost because I understood why he had to go, because there really wasn't much of a place, especially because he was dealing with so many injuries. Mm-hmm. And we've seen so much growth out of Kobe McKenzie as well as Kip Lewis and Samuel Masigo. It's gotten to the point where it's like, where do we put Deshaun? He wasn't a cheetah. We don't really need him at edge with R. Mason Thomas playing the way he was playing. So where do you need help? To me, Kendall Daniels is probably that guy. He's going to be able to come in. He's experienced with getting tackles. He's gotten pressure on quarterbacks. He can blitz. He can play in coverage. We've seen him do some good stuff in coverage. Now we've got to do is work on his discipline, his eye discipline, and get him out there to wrap up on those tackles. And man, I think he can be the next big-time linebacker / cheetah to player. He may be the Isaiah Simmons if he goes out there and busts his butt.
Yeah, I think there's a real chance that he can be a huge, impactful player for the Sooners this next year because he's got all the tools to be really, really good. Agreed. It's just a matter of, can he put it all together in year one in this Brent Venables defense, this, Zach Alley, the potential defense that Oklahoma runs this next year. Will he be able to put all the pieces, mesh well with the team, play good team defense, and then put that effort out? I'm going with Derek Simmons, the offensive tackle addition. I think he's a plug-and-play starter at tackle. I know people are going to look at where he came from and say, hey, John, pump the brakes a little bit. He's got to go earn a job. Nothing's guaranteed for him. But let's just run down the list of teams that were trying to get this kid to come play for him or play for them. I mean, you had Virginia Tech. You had Florida State. You had Oklahoma. You had Texas Tech, Kentucky, Wake Forest, Virginia, Kansas State, Georgia Tech, Michigan State, UCF, Cal, Duke. I mean, NC State, Houston, Pitt. Now, this isn't a ton of SEC teams, but you've got some good programs in there, like a Florida State. You've got Georgia Tech, who had a really good year this year. They believe in the tools that he's got and the ability that he can be a big-time player. In 2 games against big-time competition over the last couple of years, NC State and against Arkansas, he only allowed a total of 4 pressures in those 2 games. So I think they're getting a guy that's got an upward trajectory that can start for them at right tackle at the very least and just help solidify the offensive line a little bit. So, and which is something that you need. You need a veteran presence out there at right tackle that's going to help them have a much better year and much more consistency along the offensive line.
No, yeah, I totally agree with that, especially because he's bringing in so many snaps, 612 snaps with 0 sacks allowed and 11 total pressures allowed coming in is huge, because that's the one thing that's most important, is that bringing in experience. You only lose 51 snaps out of Garion Hatchett. You lose 164 out of Joshua Bates, and every other offensive lineman didn't get you in the stats outside of that. But you bring in Derek Simmons at 600 snaps, as well as Luke Baklinko at 646. I think Simmons does have an opportunity to be one of those guys that can walk in and take the job on the spot. I agree with you. He's one that's going to push for time on the field, and that's going to make both the Jake and Jacob have to figure things out, get themselves going. Also need them to be healthy. That's the other thing. And that's kind of why I was talking about in the last segment. the good thing is you're bringing in bodies to help with all the injured bodies we've been dealing with, experienced bodies. Now, you're right. There's no guarantee in starting here. You're not going to be handed a job. While at the same time, the one good thing is that you add him with the young pups right behind him, Isaiah Autry-Den, who's gotten some game time. Daniel Akinkumi, he'll be able to start getting some time now. Logan Howland, who played pretty solid when he was healthy. You're adding him. You're going to see that's the good thing about the offensive line. We're getting a lot of players. Bill Beatonbow's got a lot of players that have actually got some experience and be busting their butts. So I like that one too. I think he's going to be a major contributor this season, even if he's just a swing tackle.
Which wide receiver do you think is going to make the biggest impact of the transfer portal additions? Remember, Giovanni Gibson, Keontez Lewis, Josiah Martin, and Isaiah Satania.
Man, so I've been in between Satania and Giovanni Gibson, to be honest, just because of the size and the speed that I've seen out of Gibson and hitting those routes and getting open. He's really good at hitting him on a goal or a deep post. But Satania, you get him in space, he's going to make some people miss. And I think that those are the two, to me, that's going to probably be the most impactful, especially Giovanni Gibson. I think just leveraging his size is going to be fun for what we know John Mateer likes to do. He gets rid of the ball very fast. So it's all about getting off the line quickly and getting to your spot. I think Gibson's going to be the one that's going to be able to do it just because of his size. He'll be able to just jump, do a bunch of jump balls. But I'm not gonna rule out Lewis or Satania, as they're going to be playing along with Deion Burks. Man, there's a lot of opportunity at wide receiver, which I'm really excited about.
Now, here's a kind of off the wall question for you. Who would you take, Marvin Jones in sacks or Giovanni Gibson in touchdowns?
Ooh. I'm thinking do Giovanni in touchdowns. Okay. I think he'll get him beat by a couple. Let's go with that. That's a good question, because when you think about it, because Marvin Jones is going to be definitely battling with R. Mason Thomas about who's going to get all those sacks, as well as Danny Okoye, which we expect to see more playing time, and PJ Adebawore. Yeah. Give me I'm gonna take Gibson. Who you picking?
Yeah, I'll go with Marvin Jones. I think Marvin Jones Jr., he's just up for a big time breakout. And with R. Mason Thomas on the other side of the defensive line, creating pressure and taking up so much of the attention from opposing offensive coordinators, and what you got in the middle with Jaden Jackson, Dominic Williams, Grayson Halt, and David Stone, my man Marvin Jones Jr. is going to have a chance, dude. He's going to have a chance to have a breakout. Now I'm thinking like 5 or 6 sacks, and maybe close to 12 to 15 tackles for loss. But I think if he can get to 6-7 sacks, while R. Mason Thomas has 8 to 10, and you get more from your interior, you're cooking with fire, man, or cooking with gas. That's the saying. But I think that's going to be an interesting battle. And I know that's kind of an off the wall question. What do you all think? Do you think it's going to be Giovanni Gibson has more touchdowns than Marvin Jones Jr. has sacks? Let us know in the comments what you think is going to happen there, because it's going to be fascinating, because we're going to need these transfer portal additions to have big time production for Oklahoma if they want to get to the college football playoff or be in SEC title contention. And speaking of titles, we watched a fantastic national championship game on Tuesday night. We have some takeaways from that. Saw some big time portal additions make some big time plays for the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.